As we know, David Benavidez will be fighting Caleb Plant on March 25th. And now we have some information on a few fights that'll be on the undercard. And this is another great undercard from the PBC and Showtime. Starting with this fight right here. Chris Colbert versus Rayo Valenzuela. And I'm not going to lie, I'm very surprised to see this fight because these were two of the top prospects at the PBC, and they're both coming off losses. So you would think they would be trying to build them back up with easier fights. You know, Chris Colbert got dominated and dropped by Hector Garcia, and then Rayo was knocked out in the third round by Edwin De Los Santos. So to see this fight being made is looking like it's a prove it. PBC want to see which one of these guys is for real, which one just had a bad night, and which one isn't really that good. And again, this is the PBC putting their top young fighters in the ring with each other. We just seen Frank Martin and Michelle Rivera fight. Now we getting this fight. So this is interesting matchmaking, and it's good to see for the sport of boxing. And it's looking like we heading in the right direction, at least on the PBC side. And then we also have Cody Crowley on the card, who's ranked top 5, top 10 in the world at 147, fighting Abel Ramos. I don't really know too much about him, to be honest, but I looked at his record, and he had a split decision. He went to a split decision with Ugas, so he's probably a pretty solid fighter. Not the highest level of competition, and Cody Crowley coming off his 2 best wins. So this is probably in that same level of competition that he's been fighting. But in my opinion, this is still a very good fight. If he could put on a good performance against somebody that went to a split decision with Ugas, then that would be very impressive. And he could be making a statement if he goes out there and stops him. Cody Crowley doesn't really have a good knockout ratio, but Abel Ramos has only been stopped one time in his 5 losses. So if he goes out there and stops somebody that went to a split decision with Ugas, that would be a statement. But again, this is great matchmaking by PBC. They going in so far this year, putting on good fights. Not just main events. They're doing good fights throughout the whole card. And this is great to see. Meanwhile, on Top Rank, we got Shakur fighting the extra from Rush Hour. And before y'all start tripping, no, I'm not one of them weirdos. One of these weird boxing channels that picks a side between PBC and Top Rank. Hell no. I'm a fan of boxing and good fights. That's it. I don't care who you fighting with. I don't give a fuck if you fighting on BOK Prime if it's a good fight. I don't care. But Shakur fighting the extra from Rush Hour. And I ain't saying that just because he Asian. I ain't being racist. Look at him. I feel like I seen him on Rush Hour before. I'm not even playing, bro. Like just from this picture right here. And I know y'all see it too. I swear I see him in Rush Hour before. But I ain't going in on Shakur. As we know, people were turning down the fights with him. Shakur was trying to get the fights done, bigger fights done. And this guy is ranked top 10 in the world by BoxRec. And he did knock out Nakatani in 6 rounds, who went to a decision with Tiafimo. And I think he went 11 rounds with Lomachenko. So he got him out of there before both of them guys. But to be honest, I don't put much on those wins. I don't put much on that win over Nakatani. You know, guys get credited with beating Nakatani like he's just a great fighter, but he was never a champion. Gervonta Davis would never get credit for beating a fighter like Nakatani, but all these other guys do. But that's another subject. But then, we just got news today that the co-main event of that card will be none other than Keyshawn Davis fighting Emmanuel to go. Really, dude? Like, Keyshawn just did an interview with Fight Hype. And he is talking about his next opponent like it was something that we are going to be excited about.
I'm not going to release my opponent, but for the opponent I'm fighting next, yeah, I believe they would do that. My opponent I'm fighting is an opponent.
Like, damn, the way Keyshawn was talking, I thought he was going to be fighting somebody like, I don't know, like a Ray Tyler, somebody like that. Emmanuel to go. And that's not to go's not a bad fighter. But we seen him in there with Ryan Garcia. And he wasn't really there to fight. Ryan went the distance with him and couldn't really catch him. So if Keyshawn could get in there and stop him, that would be kind of impressive. But it was nothing like he was making it seem in that interview right there. But also in that interview, he commented on Gervonta Davis and his level of competition and his resume.
a lot what Tim Bradley said, but the one thing I do agree with Tim Bradley said was like, all right, Tank, at this point, bro, fight somebody, bro. Like, you're selling out all the arenas. You're a superstar. Like, you're a star, bro. You're forefronting all the young boxers right now. You was pro before the Devin Haney's, the Shakur Stevenson, the TFE all of that, bro. You feel what I'm saying? You was coming up with Lomachenko. So at this point, bro, you kind of is welling, bro. You gotta fight somebody, bro. When the fuck are you fight somebody? Like I said, he's great. I'm not taking nothing from the man, but yes, it is kind of like it's not his record not great for real. His record not really great. If you look at the landscape of the boxing right now, if you look at the whole landscape of 135 right now, and look at his record, you tell me how great it is.
Now, as y'all know, I'm a Tank fan, of course. I tell y'all that all the time. I'm a Tank fan, Shakur fan, Stephen Fulton fan, Cool Boy, Jerron Boots Ennis, a lot of fighters. And I want to see Gervonta Davis in there in these fights that y'all think is big fights. The only one I think is really a huge fight for Tank that really has a chance of beating him is Shakur Stevenson. And I like Frank Martin too, I'm not going to lie. I like Frank Martin for some reason. But I want to see Tank against all of them. Devin Haney, Ryan, Shakur, Frank Martin, whoever else you could think of. But this narrative that Tank's resume is trash compared to everybody else's at 135 is a straight lie. What Keyshawn Davis said was look at the landscape of 135 and compare his resume to that. And what Bill Haney has been saying is look at the betting odds going into Gervonta Davis's fights. He's not really fighting no tough fights. Well, let's look at this. The top three guys, we could say, is Tank, Shakur, and Devin Haney. Out of those three guys, Gervonta Davis is the only one that's going into a fight as an underdog. Out of all these guys, Gervonta Davis is the only one that's going into a fight that he wasn't supposed to win. Vegas had Pedraza beating Gervonta Davis, and Vegas does not lose a lot. Gervonta Davis said, I'm the underdog because he's the world champion. That's the reason. Other than that, I feel deep inside that he's the underdog, but that's just my assessment. He won't be showing me anything I haven't already seen before. I've never been the underdog in a fight, so this is the first for me. Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson haven't been underdogs at any fight they've ever gone into. And then Tank also said in this article, I think this will be a wake-up call for boxing, a chance to show that I'm the one. But I'm not coming to be just a top guy. I want to be a superstar and bring joy and entertainment to the sport. Pedraza will bring the best out of me, and I will steal the show. And that's exactly what he did. And from then, he's become one of the biggest stars in boxing. He's one of the faces of boxing. But that's the fight that people say was Tank's toughest opponent. And he was the underdog going into that fight. Now let's compare that to Shakur and Devin's toughest opponents. Who will we say Shakur Stevenson's toughest opponent was? Probably Oscar Valdez. Let's look at the odds in that fight. Was Shakur an underdog, or was he even with his toughest opponent? Nope. He was a minus 800 favorite. Now let's look at Devin Haney. We could say Devin Haney's toughest opponent was Kambosos. Let's look at the odds for both fights. Was Devin Haney the favorite? Yup. He was not the underdog. Was it closer? A little bit, yeah. But he was not an underdog like Gervonta Davis. And remember, that was off the hype from Kambosos being Tiafimo and people overrating him from that win. But going into the rematch, look how much the odds changed. Devin Haney was a minus 1,000 against George Kambosos. So the lie of look at the landscape of 135 and what other people are doing in comparison to Gervonta Davis is just not true. None of the best guys are fighting each other. It's not just Gervonta Davis. But from the evidence that we do have, Gervonta Davis has tested himself more than anybody else because he actually went into a fight where he wasn't supposed to win. And that's not my opinion. That's the facts. But that's what I got for y'all. I'm out.